Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy, the dope ass dude, and I am so excited to be here on tonight with y'all. We weren't here last week, but we are back, and I see Levettis already in the chat, and we got Tyson already in the chat. What's going on, y'all? Happy y'all are here with me on tonight, and everyone is here with me on tonight. So you guys already know the preliminary things. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you don't mind going ahead, subscribing to the YouTube channel. And while you're there, click on notification so that you can be notified each and every time a new podcast is uploaded to the site, as well as click on like. This is something super, super important. So if you're in YouTube or whatever platform you're on, please click on that like so that this can be shared with others just like you. Now, if you don't catch it on Mondays, you can always listen on the go. It is on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Again, that's Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And then lastly, you can always catch us here live on Mondays. You can catch us live on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. Again, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. And if you're not following me on both TikTok and Instagram, if you don't mind, follow me on both of those platforms, the Dope Ass Dude podcast on both Instagram and TikTok. Again, that's the Dope Ass Dude podcast. And then you can follow Casal on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, actually, at Casal Henry. So both Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, Casal Henry. So Casal is no stranger to the show. He's been on here several times, and he's one of my favorite guests. I love for this brother to come on because he always brings so much insight to the podcast. Almost as much, so much insight that my sister likes hearing him more than she liked hearing me on the podcast, because they came over to my house the week he was on here. And my sister was like, hey, put that on the TV. And she was asking me to fast forward through me so she can listen to him. So that's but that is, Casal is my brother, and I love him to death. And I see we got Steven and Pat in the chat as well. What's up, Steven? Steven was on the podcast the last time we aired, and Pat, she's a faithful member here. So what's going on, Pat? And we're going to go ahead and bring Casal on out. Casal, what's up, man?
What's going on, my brother? Always a pleasure to be on your podcast, man. Love it.
And say, I feel the same way about you. So you got to make sure you talk a lot, because my sister's going to want to hear everything you got to say, and not me. She don't want to hear me. She want to hear you. She was like, who was that guy that you had on the podcast? And she was like, how do you get these people on there? And I was like, I just, whatever. And she was like, that guy was like amazing. She went on and on about you. I'm like, dang, well, what about me? Am I chopped meat or something? So what's been going on, man? What's been going on with you? Nothing
much, man. Yeah, we've just continuing to record episodes. Got some more that I'm pumping out on Safe Space Network. So I'm excited. You touched on it last time when we were talking about transparency and vulnerability. So I love this season. So this season is taking on a lot of new guests, and very excited about it.
So how was that transition for you? Because normally you're solo. Solo. So your podcast is always you by yourself. But now, which I am extremely proud of you for having a guest on there, and because your podcast, your host set is amazing. So how was that transitioning over to you, with you having a guest on your show?
Well, it really wasn't difficult, because
Casal, we got that Walmart Wi-Fi again. So we're going to give Casal a minute to get back on here. We're going to give him a second to get back on. And then, but while we're waiting on Casal, guys, the conversation tonight is going to be about open relationships. So that is what the conversation is going to be about. So see Casal back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
The Wi-Fi, Walmart Wi-Fi.
No, man, it's these phone calls. No. No, it wasn't a hard transition because we have conversations like this at the house all the time. So we have a group of young adults and young professionals that come together and we talk, and a lot of the conversation happens that way anyway. So it was an easy transition to just pull some of them into the podcast and have them on the camera versus just in that group setting.
Yeah, and I think it's like the thing that I love about it too is because when you were on there by yourself, no one ever that don't know you didn't get an opportunity to see like how great of a conversationalist you are, as well as a host and navigator of your show. Because when you're hosting a podcast, you're navigating it, and I mean, you do it so seamlessly. I think
I
it's just
appreciate
amazing.
that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. That's a big compliment coming from you, sir.
Oh, whatever, man. Whatever, whatever. So we're going to go ahead and get on to it. So I want everybody in the audience to answer this here. And I see we got Darwin Shaw out there too. What's up, Darwin? What's going on, man? So this question I'm about to ask us all, I want you guys to drop your response in the chat. So Casal, open relationship, yay or nay? So would you be or have you been in an open relationship?
Absolutely not. And so from you know where I'm coming from my perspective, because I'm definitely heavy in the church and spiritual, and I definitely would not be participating in that at all.
Well, you know, the thing is, so over the weekend, I was
Yeah.
in California and I went out to dinner or whatever, and I came back and I'm sitting in the hotel at the bar and everything. So a whole group discussion comes about
Yeah.
and open relationships came up. And one of the guys there, he was in an open relationship and he shared about his experiences, how it is
Hmm.
beneficial to the relationship. And I even asked him, like, well, because who initiated this, who initiated it, and he said that he did. He was the one who initiated the conversation to have. And once he had the conversation, I said, well, how did they, your partner, how did how was it received?
Right.
And because like I think it's a difference if you both go into a relationship and you already know it's going to be an open relationship opposed to when you get in there, this other person say, well, I want to do open now. But he said it was beneficial to the relationship because it takes away the temptation to cheat because you have freedom to go and have a buffet. You got a buffet going on.
So,
But so what do you think about that?
so I think that's an issue that we may have in society, right? Like it's a never satisfied type of mentality where you're used to so many options. So when you start focusing on one and this what appears to be greener grass or silver object passes by, then that piques your interest. But I think it kind of speaks to uh, I guess transparency and openness with the individual. If you're searching for something else, that means there's a gap within your own relationship that you should be talking about to kind of figure out what that gap is, or what is that person not given to you, or what are you not aware of that you need, instead of necessarily going outside to try to look out for another person that you'll probably find something with that one, and then you have another one. So it's a revolving door that's dangerous to the sanctity of marriage, I think, but also from a relationship standpoint, kind of sets you up for um, just being unsatisfied when it comes to looking at one individual.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Now, I've been in an open relationship before. I have. I've been in. The problem is, I didn't know that I was in an open relationship.
Mercy, mercy.
I didn't know I was in an open relationship, but I was in one. Seemed like I was in one now, but I didn't know that I was in one. And the thing is, but I do now. The thing I really admired about the guy is that he had a adult conversation with
Mhm.
with the person. They was like, "Hey, this is what I want to do." He gave them that option to decide whether or not this is something I can handle or something I don't want to be a part of. And I think that is, if opposed to
Mm-hmm.
cheating on someone, this may be an option. I'm not giving anybody no options, but I would rather for someone to tell me, hey, I'm not satisfied in this relationship, and or I'm not getting what I need out of this relationship, opposed to going and finding it and keeping me in the dark. So I
Yeah.
do kind of respect that part, that they were mature enough to have the conversation to say, hey, I want to explore other options. But I do get what you're saying about the sanctity of marriage and a relationship and all of that kind of stuff. So, what would you do if someone came, if she came to you and said, "Hey, Casal, I want to be in an open relationship, but I love you."
So, hey, I want you to be happy. I want you to be saved, but where this is where our train ends. This is where the end of the road is. That is just the concept of that, right? It's to me, if I'm committing, right, like you're committing to one person, that I want to get to know that one person. If I've got to get to know another person on top of that one person, that's just outside of everything else that I shared before. Like, I don't want to go through all that. Like, choose someone else that can fit what you're looking for, but you know, don't think that you can have this and that.
Now, where do you? Because I know in your podcast with the young lady,
Yeah,
she was talking about self love and so forth.
yeah,
When someone come and when you face, well, not you, but when a person is faced with that
right,
choice or that decision to make,
yeah,
that's really when self-love kind of like kick in, when you really have to love you more than you love them. So
right.
would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's self love, but I also think it's value, understanding your value, right? If someone is saying that I need someone else, to me, the message that you're sending is you're not valuable enough for it to be just you. You have enough value for one piece, but I need someone else that can fill the void of the value that you don't possess. So, in essence, accepting that to me is like, okay, I accept the value that you place on me instead of me having that value of completeness.
Yeah, I 100%. And that was the thing, because I think too, when that's why I said it's the difference when you go into a situation and you already go in it knowing that, hey, this is going to be an open relationship. You know what to expect. But once you get into a situation and that person comes in and they say, like, hey, I want to do this here now. I want to do this here now.
Yeah,
The other person is going to feel some way like I'm not enough. They may
absolutely.
go along with it, they may agree with it and all this other kind of stuff, but you can't, it's like you said, it's like I'm only good for this, but I'm not fulfilling this. So, okay, but okay, so let's talk about that there. So in your podcast, you guys really was talking about being transparent, and the young lady said that sometimes when she comes into
Yeah,
a relationship, she feels that she overshares. She's
right.
too open. She's too open. What do you think is too open, or is there anything? Is there even a too open? Can
Well,
you be
I,
too open?
I think you can, right? I think there has to be some sharing that you're being prejudiced about, right? So if you're walking into a discussion, you're not going to give the person the playbook. If you're playing a team, you're not going to give that team the playbook on what you're going to do, right? So if you tell everything up front, then you can be giving them the keys to you, and that can be mishandled. I think it's a navigation to see, do I trust this person with sharing this information? I think it's a gradual trust that is built, and not necessarily day one, I'm just going to share everything about me so that everything is there. And then, we kind of build from there because, you know, I've been in a situation where someone can tell you what you want to hear, but you don't really know if that's really the person or they're just telling you what you want to hear. And the only way you
Mhm.
know that is if you discover it through sharing, and then, slowly, as trust is expanded and grows from there, then you share a little more, and then kind of the discovery process.
So is it really trust, or is it, do I know this person well enough? And what I mean by that is you can be with
Mhm.
somebody for 10 or 15 years, but there are still some things you can't share with them in some situations. Some people, they share everything. They've grown, they trust the
Right,
person. But you have to, I've learned in my life that you have to know your audience and what they can handle.
right.
Like that's like if you go in there, somebody say, "Hey, John, what's your body count?" I already know you can't handle my body count. So that's a situation where you say that's probably not a conversation we need to have, because you know that that person can handle that, because what happens is in turn they come back and they hold it against you. It becomes a problem in the future, and you're just sharing. And I trust you with my life, but I know that you can't handle
So,
that. So that's why I say, is it really trust or
yeah.
knowing the person?
So to your point right there, I think that's a very valuable point that you made, because you're absolutely right. When something is weaponized, if we're talking about the confines of a relationship now, right? If something is weaponized, then what that does is, especially if the person is on, for the most part, a man, right? Like, I can only speak from my experience and the individuals I've spoken with. But when that information is weaponized, that's not a nice feeling, right? Because it takes a lot for a man to be vulnerable in a relationship, first of all. But when that person or that man is, and then that's used against him, then what that does is that causes a scale all the way back, because we learn through experiences. So we don't like to get burned twice. That scales us back. That's saying to me, I can't trust you with this information. So you're right in that way. Until that level of transparency, or the trust, or getting to know them is there, then I'm not going to share that until that wound is closed. And the other person also has to understand the damage of weaponizing that information or holding that person to it, because they're tearing apart what could be a safe space for that individual to be vulnerable in. And that's a hard thing to build back once you start doing it, especially if it's repetitive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I love how you say the weaponizing part of it, because a lot of times we don't know that we are using it as a weapon against the other
Yeah,
person. But again, a lot of times that comes from our own personal insecurities, that
right.
comes from wounds that haven't been healed, and
Yeah,
someone else is feeling that we're a safe space and that we can handle it. Then that becomes a problem. That
yeah.
becomes a problem. And yeah. Now, so let me ask you this here, Casal. This is a part of vulnerability as well. I know you about and transparency. When you were married, did you share your passcodes?
No, I didn't, and I'll tell you why. For well, there are a couple of reasons why. Number one, I'm in cybersecurity. I'm trained not to share any information like that. I have to do it at work. I have to tell the VPs and executives at work, you cannot share your password out. You can, and even my family, I tell them the same thing. If I hear it, I'm like, why are you telling me this? Why are you saying this out loud? You're not supposed to do that. If we're talking about a security mindset, I've been in IT now for 25 years. So that's 25 years of training that information is to be protected. That's not something that I just go by. It's not that there's anything to hide. No, we can talk about it all day, but it's ingrained in me, and I have to practice what I'm telling everyone on my job, and so it's just a part of me.
So is that a violation of transparency?
No, we can. I'll open it and give it to you. You can take a look at it, but I have nothing to hide there. But to again, when we're talking about, and this is not like at a level where I'm leading teams that do this, right? So I have to maintain that level of integrity across the board, or else I can't go to this and say you can't do this or you shouldn't do this, and I'm doing it. I feel like it's an obligation both on my part to live what I'm saying and live what I believe at the same time. We can have a conversation about it all day. I can show you all of the stuff in there all day, right? But to breach that password, that's just against what I believe.
Mhm. And the funny thing about that is, to some people, that still wouldn't be enough.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
still wouldn't be enough. If you said, okay, I don't give out my passwords, but I will sit down with you, I open up my phone
yeah,
and I will give it to you, they would still feel as though that is control on your part and you are hiding something, and you've already gone in and deleted what you needed to delete out, or you put in a folder somewhere that I can't
right.
see. To insecure people, it's never going to be enough.
But see, again, so what that does, it highlights discussion points for issues, right? So if there's contention over that, right, which that has happened in the past, and you're having a conversation about it and you don't understand, where does this thing come from, right? It comes from a lack of trust. If I'm saying to you, I'm giving you the phone and you're looking at it, right? A, what is the motive in looking at it? Is it because you feel like something exists? Or is it something, some insecurity within you that is causing you to have the need to look? Now, if that root isn't addressed, then what that's going to do, it's going to snowball into something else. Soon you're going to be driving looking to see if the car is there. You're going to be, so it's going to escalate from there. A healthy communicative relationship means that you share and you trust and you talk and you communicate. So if these things are found out, then let's sit down and have a conversation about it and find out what the origin of this is and how we get through this. But it's not going to be just, no, I don't want to address it, give me your phone. No, because that leads to other things.
Mm-hmm. And that's funny that you say that, because I just had that conversation with a friend earlier. When you get to those places where you're being questioned about something, you need to ask the question, like, why do you, what is it
That's
about
right.
this that is making you feel this way? Let's talk about that. That is
That's
a
right.
talking point. And most people don't do that, though. Why do you think most
Right.
people don't do that?
Well, because it's an emotional, I think anyway, that it's an emotional response, right? The need to know is triggered greater in some, depending on I feel like the level of trauma or the level of experience. I think the need overshadows reason, which means, why am I really asking this question? Am I asking it because I genuinely want to know, or am I asking it because I've started a story in my head that I need to validate, with having this, asking for the password or going through this, and and I'll give you an example. So, and this is where I blame social media and some of these things for it as well. There's good and bad to social media, right? But there was a trend where it was ask, your partner for the security code, and if they don't give it to you, that means they are hiding something and they are cheating. And I'm literally listening to the video play. The video ends, turns to me and says, "What's your passcode?" And I'm like, I'm literally listening to the video. And so again, if we facilitate and we condone that type of insecurity or those type of things as a society, then we're going to drive people to never trust anyone. And that, what does that say really? If I don't trust you, that means something happened to me for me not to trust you if the behavior isn't there, right? And that's where we have to do introspection, I believe, to see, well, what is the source? Where is this coming from? Why am I thinking these things? Why am I asking these questions in that manner? Is it within me, or is it really something that I'm seeing?
Yeah, yeah. So we have some comments out here. So the question about would you be in an open relationship? Levette said nay. Okay, Levette. Pat said nah. If your partner can't trust you and you try this, it will cause a problem. Okay. And then she also came back and said, nah, if you have trust issues in your relationship, it can cause a big problem. Okay. And
Absolutely.
let's see here. We agree with that. Let's see here. So Stephen said, being in an open relationship just seems like too much work. I have my hands full with just one woman, my wife.
So, so the funny, the funny thing about that statement is, if, and again, speaking only for myself, that just removing all the other areas that I spoke about before from a religious standpoint. Listen, I don't like having to be more than one person to in different scenarios. I want to be the same person across the board. I don't have the time or energy to try to be someone here and over here at the same time. I just want to be me all the time. That way I don't even have to think about it. So, so I agree wholeheartedly. That's too much work outside
Yeah,
of everything else.
it's too much work. So my next question to those of you that are watching, would you give your person, your spouse, maid, partner, whatever you want to call them, would you give them your passcodes to your phone? Yeah, to your phone, because phones is pretty much where we have everything stored now. So would you give them your passcode to your phone? And if no, why not? But I do think that, again, Casal, even with that, it is
Yeah.
about having a mature conversation and asking
Yeah.
like, why? What
Yeah.
is driving this?
Absolutely.
What is driving?
Absolutely.
Oh, Pat said I would. Okay, Pat.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah.
Pat must have a Nokia from 1993 where she can't store nothing.
and and to be fair there too, I know a lot of people who do, right? It's, and if I wasn't in security, I probably would. But it's ingrained in me because of all of the stuff, and I receive my emails on my phone. So I have a lot of confidential stuff that flows through my phone that I cannot, let anyone see. So there, it's, you know, not in this position, not in IT. Hey,
Yeah, yeah, and Omar said no need. Omar said no need, so he said no need to share the password and everything. And I do agree. There are some people they feel completely comfortable with sharing their passwords with their spouses and so forth. Tyson came back and said nope, and Levette said yes. Okay, okay. Levette said yeah. Okay. So, but I think there are some people who share their passwords with people with their mates and everything, and I think
yeah,
that's pretty cool if you believe you trust your or your mate well enough to know that hey, I can trust you with my phone and you're not going to go and when I'm not around be checking my stuff because I've had that to happen, and that's a deal breaker for me if my stuff ever is checked, I'm done. Like I will walk away from a relationship. I don't care how long I've been in there because I've been violated like that before. That's not a
mm,
scar or wound that haven't been healed. It's just something that I've set as a boundary.
boundary. Yeah,
I'm never going to cross that line and check your stuff. I'm never going to do any of that kind of stuff. So don't do it to me. And if you do it to me, I'm out. No questions asked. It's like you'll be calling me the next day and I don't answer because I'm done.
but again, I think it deals with communication, right? Like if you're talking about, here's why I don't share my password. I have nothing to hide. We could go through all of this, but again, having the conversation as to why, and having that up front and not letting it be discovered over time, where something may be triggered, and then they're asking, they're no, not having that conversation before, it doesn't set the precedence for you to say no at this point in time and not have turmoil within the other person. you, I think communication about those boundaries, communication about why, and I did that. Like I said, hey, I've been in IT. This is the practice that I have to do. This is the information that's within. I can't do this. That's a conversation that you have up front, not a conversation that is derived from I have a feeling I want to go check and I can't. That goes down a different path.
Yeah, to go down there. Okay, now, so in your part two of your segment with that young lady, it was titled "From Dating to Serving."
Yeah.
So when I saw that, it raised the eyebrow before I watched the video. I was like, "What is Casal setting himself up to get cussed out with that serving word?" So let's talk about that. From dating to serving, what does that mean?
So the testimony that was really being given was an individual that this person was dating, and this individual had a separate life, right? There was some controlling behaviors. There were a lot of things that were going on in the background that she was not aware of. And what ended up happening is later on, when law enforcement came to the door and kind of was asking for the individual, that's when everything came out. And she understood why a lot of the controlling behaviors, a lot of the, you know, conversations went the way that they did, because this guy had a bunch of um, some rapes, some assaults, all of these things that were open pending cases that she had no idea about. And so this is the first time she's hearing it, but then some of the behaviors, like I said before, started to make more sense as to like why he was pushing for her to always pick up her phone anytime he called. Well, if he's calling from prison, then I need you to pick up the call. So, and that's essentially what happened in that episode was after all of the things came out, he went to prison, and eventually over time, actually within the recent months, was sentenced to serving life without parole plus 5. So there was a whole nother lifestyle that he was carrying on that she had no knowledge about at all. And so that was the whole thing in her mind. She thought she was dating towards marriage when this individual was carrying on these other, behaviors against the women's will, and, still having a quote unquote regular relationship with this individual. So that was the transition from dating until, finding out this man is serving life without parole.
Wow. So let me ask you this here. So, Casal, like, have you ever been in a situation where looking back in retrospect, you see a lot of stuff that you missed?
Yeah, I do. And more so anytime I look back at myself. I look back to see, yeah, there are always behaviors that we can point out or say that we see in others, but I look back to myself and I think about what did I push past? What caused me to push past these things? Did I see what triggered different responses within me that I ignored, or did I rationalize it? Did I look at it as a project? Like, what was it that caused me to continue to move forward? Not focusing on the other person, but more so, why did I take this path?
Okay. And when you say, like, you ask yourself, um, like, did you look at it as a project? Or you meaning like, did you look at it as that is possibly something I can fix in her? Or like when you say project, what do you mean?
So the old adage of dating potential. So, everything may be there. There may be a couple of areas that you feel like, well, there's potential in that area. You may want to fix that. And a lot of we all do it to some degree, right? We say, well, this will change over time. Well, no, these things don't change over time. People don't change like that. If the individual is changing for themselves, that's one thing, right? But if you're going in thinking that you can change someone, then you're sadly mistaken. That's not going to be a genuine change, and that's not going to last. And unless there's a God changing of the heart type of deal, that's not typically something that you walk away and say, all right, that person has changed now that I've required that change or I've pushed that change or anything like that. I mean, dating potential has gotten a lot of people in trouble, including myself, throughout my life, not necessarily just in this, but just throughout my life.
Yeah. Now, did you think that she would love you enough that she would change for you? That not you change her, but she would do the
Right.
changing on her own because she loves you. Did you ever think that?
I think there were instances where I did, but I think that's where, again, we have to look at the reason behind some of these things, right? So if we talk about trauma, you know, trauma is not something that you can just fix overnight, right? So if some of these are derived from trauma, then those aren't things that you can fix. That's not something that I could look at and say, all right, I can potentially fix that. First of all, it's not my job to fix that. That's God's job. And secondly, that individual has to want to change. That individual has to uh, accept the fact that this is something that they would like to change or they want to change, because you can't force anybody to change anything or to want to change something.
Yeah. And the reason I stayed on that because I just love how you're always so open and honest and transparent about those type of things. Because normally we hear that women go into situations and they're hoping to change a man. And I really think
Hmm.
sometimes they go into a situation thinking that he's gonna see that she's a good woman, she's a
Yeah.
good mother, all of these type of things,
Yeah.
and he's going to want to change it because he sees the value in it. We rarely ever hear a guy saying that what you just said, and I think that's pretty dope of you to say that, because like I said, we normally only hear that with women, but I like how you said they have to change on their own.
Yeah.
Nothing really about you. It has to be a decision that they make because they want to be better for themselves, not for you, but better for themselves, because it's not going to stick.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I look at it like this too. There are a lot of things that I would have done differently throughout my life, right? And I think in looking back, I realized how much of a mirror relationships really are. So I feel that relationships are more of a mirror of yourself or myself versus looking at someone else. Because and I'll give you an example. So if I always want to do something one way, and I know the individual doesn't want to do it that way, or it's not conducive to them, or it's not, you know, something that they're fond of. Is my need, is this really a big deal, first of all? But then is my need to have it done my way more important than the other person's feelings about that? And if I look at that and I say, yeah, I don't care about that, but still, no, I just want to have my way regardless, then what that's revealed to me is, man, I'm a lot more selfish than I really thought. I'm not really sitting here trying to understand why the other person doesn't like it this way or why they like the way that they would have it done. I'm more concerned with how I want it done. And so I focus on what I want done. And now that becomes a point of contention.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this here, Casal. So in the past, because I know you do a lot of self-reflecting and so forth, in the past, have you ever made a relationship to the point that she couldn't be open, she couldn't be free and tell you? like what's on her mind?
I would probably say yeah. I would say yes. And how I would say that, the reason why I would say yes is I'm sure there were times where I undoubtedly was selfish in this, where it's just like, no, I want it this way. I mean, that's just the way I want it. And not necessarily taking the time to understand. Again, I'm looking backward and learning, reassessing all of these things and taking a different look at it versus being in the situation in my mindset at that point, right? So, yes, looking back, absolutely. Did I see it in that moment? No. I didn't see it in that moment because I was not in the place or in the headspace to really understand a lot of these decisions or a lot of what selfishness means when you're talking about safe and vulnerability when it comes to a space for sharing. I didn't even know that I didn't have a voice in the beginning at all in some of these, right? Like I didn't even know that I just felt like I was like, well, I just got to internalize that and keep moving. I didn't even know that I should have a voice. So again, it's not until I'm looking back that I'm like, you know what? I really didn't express how that made me feel. Or I didn't even think about how that made me feel. Or I didn't take into account what she was saying and understand how that made her feel. So it's the going back and really taking a look. And again, that's why I don't really focus too much on the other person. I'm more so focused on what was my gap in where my growth should have been or my maturity should have been so that I can get a better understanding of, hey, you got to do better, or here's something you got to improve on, or you got to learn. And we've got to be honest and transparent with ourselves to admit that we're not perfect. We fail, but we have to take those failures as a learning opportunity for growth and not I'm just not going to acknowledge that I failed. I'm just going to move forward to the next. That
Mhm.
that's a damaging perspective that will just pass the baggage of trauma on to whoever else.
Yeah. So how didn't you know you had a voice? Or why didn't you know? Because we go into
Mhm.
marriages and relationships, and we say it's a partnership. Partnerships is
Right.
50-50. So it's like we both can express ourselves. How is it that you didn't know you had a voice?
So so firstly, I really believe that it's 100-100, right? In terms of I have to come to you giving you my all, and the other person has to as well in order. But I get what you're saying with that, right? But I didn't know that I didn't have a voice because I was used to what society said. Like, men don't cry, men don't share their feelings. If you share your feelings a certain way, then that means you're weak. And growing up, we teased, and others teased me, and I teased others if I saw them in those same situations. But it's because of the society in which we grew up. That we talked about it in the past. Some of the shows, the hero shows, you don't see the hero crying. You see the hero always being strong. And so, in our minds, as we're growing up, modeling that type of behavior, and even for looking at our dads, if our dads or fathers did not show that level of emotion as well, then it's going to be a foreign thing for us to be able to do it. Now, my dad, he had that vulnerability with my mom, but there's still this, I look at my dad as my hero, and I look at him as, nah, nothing ever breaks him down. He's strong. He's good. Same thing with everything that I watch. You know what I'm saying? So being conditioned in that mindset, I felt like I've got to suck this up. I don't care how I'm feeling. I've got to step out and move forward. It doesn't matter how I feel.
Yeah. So how did you get to the place where you knew that you had a voice? How did you transition from not knowing it to waking up and being like, no, my opinion matters? How did you get there? And the reason I ask is because there are both men and women who feel
Yeah.
that they feel like
Yeah.
my voice doesn't matter. I'm not going to be heard. So they just go along with the other person or and shut themselves down. So how did you transition to the place where you know you got a voice?
I discovered it through unhealthy means. I broke. It got to the point where I felt like I hit the bottom and I just could not take anymore. And in that moment, I lashed out. When I lashed out, I was like, man, everything I said, I felt. I didn't really think about it, but man, I feel good releasing that. And then I was like, wait a minute, man, I should do this more often. But what I didn't realize at that time is there's a healthy way of realizing you have a voice versus waiting until you're broken and then you erupt. And that's why I talk a lot now and even on the podcast about really creating that safe space so that it
Mhm.
doesn't have to get to that eruption phase where it's just piling on and on and on. And then eventually you just don't care and you're just like, whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to say what I feel. So that's kind of how I discovered it, that I had a voice or that I should have a voice. And then in the years of looking back, that's when I realized, okay, now that I swung hard the other way, I have to understand that it's not everything I think I should say. I have to really think about what I'm saying to people.
Mhm. Because I think when you erupt and it's like you're vomiting on the other
Yes,
person. You're
yes,
vomiting on the other person. And it does so much in some cases, it can do a lot of damage to the
yes,
other person because
yes.
it's like a parent whooping a kid. They just
Hmm.
say, hey, don't do that, Johnny. Go on. Next thing you know,
Yep.
Johnny do it again. 2 months done pass. Johnny does something. It triggers something. And then they whip them. They
Hmm.
whipping Johnny for everything he has done the past 6 months in that one whipping. And it's like, dang, me, like not making up my bed, it causes this type of, tension on me. And I think that's what happens when we do not effectively communicate what we're feeling in the moment. It's not fair to the other person that
Yeah, absolutely.
you ain't realized you got a voice.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why like I'm a strong advocate now of communication and both be people being transparent. Like, but men really need to be intentional about being transparent. I gave the example the other day, I think in one of our conversations where I can be going through something, and I'll hit up one of my boys and be like, "Yo, let's do something." And even if they're coming here, right? They'll come here, sit down, watch TV. We won't talk about it, but we're hanging out. We laugh and joke about everything else. He leaves, and I still feel the same way. Why? Because I didn't take that opportunity to have that transparent and vulnerable conversation to say, man, bro, I'm not doing well. This is where I'm really sitting today. I I don't feel good. I'm not okay. And it's hard for men to admit that because again it goes against the grain of everything that we've been conditioned to in society and just what the idea of the white knight is from all of the movies, all of these romance things. you know they're always held on this pedestal of this is how a man should operate, and when you hold that on the pedestal, the man believes that and he starts trying to live up to that. That's a tall order because that man doesn't exist.
Mm. So and going back to the whole open thing, being able
Yeah.
to a safe space and that type of stuff. When you erupted, did
Hmm.
that impact her ability to be open with you, or did she withdraw, or did she just continue like nothing?
Well, because that had never happened before, there was it stopped the argument immediately, and there was kind of like a recalibration because that was new, right? And so that really ended the argument because it was just kind of like what just happened. I this is not what I'm used to seeing or hearing. I'm not sure how to even address what just happened. So it kind of ended it, and that was it. But at that point in time, again, to be fair to the situation, that was already deep into. I mean, that was far, far into the negative side of things. Where it was heading towards divorce. But yeah, no, it stopped it because that was new. Wasn't used to me voicing my thoughts and just my feelings. Period.
Hmm. So how did you take accountability for that? Did you apologize for erupting, or did you yeah, did you take any account?
So honestly, at that time, no, I felt justified.
Dang,
I'm
because she scrambled your eggs supposed to cooking them over easy. I mean, yoke
no,
up, you went off
no,
like that. Dang.
no,
That was your
no,
trigger. I done told
no,
you I don't like these eggs scrambled.
no, no. Like I said, this was on the path where it was, post going down the hill for divorce. So this was long after all of that. However, no, honestly, I did not in that moment or at that time do that at all because a I had just found my voice, but I didn't know there was a negative impact to how I found my voice. I just felt vindicated because I had finally spoken up. And that's what I was looking at. Like, man, I've been holding this forever. This feels good to get it off my chest. So I didn't think about it that way until after all the years later when the dust settled and I'm looking back and I'm thinking about, wow, like that was bad. Like I swung all the way to the other side from not saying anything. Then I just said every single thing that was on my mind.
Yeah. So how do you hone that in now, moving forward? Like, how do you go into relationships now? Like, what steps do you take now?
So my dad has always said to me that you can't take words back. And so he said, think before you speak. And so I purposely pause before responding to anything, even if it was a friend, right? Like I still pause before I'm saying something because I want to think about what I'm going to say. And I want to make sure I'm not reacting, but I'm responding. Because if I'm reacting, then it's a knee jerk. Hey, you made me feel this way, emotional charge. I'm jumping this way. But if I'm responding, that means I'm listening to what is happening and I'm processing it and I'm taking the opportunity to respond at that moment because I've thought about it and it's not just a reaction. So that, hearing that principle from him that he's been sharing throughout my life, I really take that to heart because no amount of I'm sorry's can erase some of the pain from words, right? It's like driving a nail through wood. If every time I just said what I thought, I'm driving a nail in, I can pull out that nail, but that hole still exists. And that's the lasting impression that my dad said that I have to really think about when I'm saying things is the impression that leaves afterwards.
Mhm. Mhm. And I think that's the thing that a lot of us, we never take into consideration the impression, the aftermath of us
Yeah.
speaking our minds and the stuff that it says. Because I do think that sometimes when we hold things in and then we let them out, because in real time in our head, we a lot of times we really don't even be thinking we're saying it as badly
Yeah.
as we do. You don't think that, in real time it's like, dang, hey, I'm
Yeah.
just getting it all out, and then it's just
Yeah.
all coming out. But it does leave a lasting damage, and it does also create, that's why it tampers with the openness of the relationship,
Yes.
where they
Yes.
feel as though I can, because even though you're expressing yourself, then sometimes people will begin to walk on eggshells because they don't know what they're going to
Exactly.
tell you is going to trigger that same type of
Exactly.
reaction. So it does impact the openness and the
Yes.
safety of that relationship. And I don't think
Yes.
that many times we really think about that.
No, absolutely. We think about, again, if you go back to that mirror, then we think about what impacts me. and me only. But it's not necessarily what am I saying? Am I thinking about the impact to the other person as well? Like, what are my actions doing to that other person? And what reflection of what that thought is, what does that reflect about me? Do I care about it or am I pushing past it? Like, what does that say about me? And I think, yes, acknowledging that the damage can be done to the other person is absolutely something that needs to happen. And then I think the second to that is, why did I do that? Or why didn't I think more about that? What was the reason that drove me to just react instead of responding in this situation? And then starting to address that within yourself so that you can understand if there's something else you need to heal from or that you need to address or talk about or, figure out.
Yeah, yeah. And we got to come in from Omar here. Unrealistic, unspoken
Mm,
expectations. Yeah, it's easier to address. Yeah, I agree with
mm-hmm.
that. And then Pat came back and she says, yes, don't change for me, but yeah, okay.
Change.
And
Yeah.
Stephen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this has been really, really good because, like I said, I think that so many times, and I think we're all guilty of it. We're all
Yeah.
guilty of it. We allow things to slide, and we
Mm-hmm.
we tend to we just let it pile up, and then
That's right.
once it comes out, yeah, it's horrible. It's
Yeah. And
horrible
I
sometimes.
and I think we let it pile up sometimes because we're afraid of uncomfortable conversations. We're afraid to disrupt what is peaceful in that moment because we don't like to give up our peace. So you start weighing the balance of, if I bring this up, how does this play out? We could get into an issue that disrupts the peace. Is it really worth it? Then we start rationalizing it. Is it worth me bringing up, or man, nah, oh well.
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah,
kind of
we
move forward.
we always take into consideration how they're going to react opposed to how we feel. How
Exactly.
we feel.
Yeah.
We're always looking at how
Yeah.
they're going to react. Oh, is this going to be a
Yeah.
problem? Are they not going to talk to me? Are they going to do this? They're
Yeah.
going to do this. And then we're the one left miserable
Yeah.
because we trying to, in some regards, we're protecting ourselves and trying to
Yeah.
avoid the backlash that could come with us sharing our feelings. But they don't have no problem telling us how they feel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But the conundrum in that is, if I share, it gets me to a place where I'm able to communicate. But then if I share, what is the end result of that share? And so it's a cyclical thing where we start weighing it, and we start, like I said, trying to play it out. But to your point, if we don't, then that leaves us in this peaceful bliss of ignorance where we're internally suffering versus having true peace in having that conversation, even if it's uncomfortable. You're able to work towards something that's comfortable versus avoidance, because
Mhm.
that's really what it is.
Yeah. And whether you get it out now or later, it's going to come out because
Oh
we
yeah.
all have breaking points. We all have
Absolutely.
breaking points. And once we reach those breaking points, that's when we erupt. And in those
Yeah.
moments, we are not caring how the other person feels in that moment. It's all about us.
Hmm.
And I need to let you know because I'm tired of you doing this. Yeah, it's going to come out. So
Yeah.
it's best to go ahead and do it in real time.
Absolutely. That's the danger of not communicating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, unlike Casal, y'all, now everything is not worth the conversation. So if she fried your eggs, I mean, scrambled your eggs soft and you like them hard, that may not be worth a conversation. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's not worth the conversation because then at that point, they're going to feel like you nitpicking and they're not going to know
Yeah.
how to please you. And then they're going to be talking about, well, hey, what do you think about an open relationship? They're going to be talking about that at that point. But yeah, okay. Kasal, this has been really good. So, okay, so let me ask you this here. So, what advice would you give someone, just if someone came to you today and they struggle with their voice? They struggle with their voice and speaking up and expressing themselves. What advice would you give them?
So I would give them kind of something that I gave myself. I can't go to the doctor and not tell the doctor what's going on with me and expect him to diagnose me. So I will continue having pain if I don't say anything to that doctor to say, here's what I'm feeling, so that he can pinpoint where that pain is or what the issue is. The same thing I would say to that individual: the longer you hold this in, is the less that you receive healing, the less that you feel fulfilled, and the less that you feel that you're heard, versus starting to venture out and understand, why am I holding this in? You may need to start with a therapist before you even start with in the relationship, right? There may be something that is blocking you from that level of communication, or even that allowing yourself to feel, because you may be suppressing it because you don't feel like you should feel. So again, understanding why it is that you feel that you can't have a voice is going to be the first step. And I think after that, it's practicing sharing in the good times, not waiting for there to be an argument and then it comes out. Test the waters, have a conversation. You know what? Hey, I kind of like it this way. This was really good when you did it this way. Again, it's how you phrase it too, right? So even if it's the eggs thing, man, that one time you did this, that was absolutely amazing. I really love that. Now, what I'm saying to you is, that's how I want that.
I would be, I would be emotionally drained taking themselves because I would be constantly thinking like, how do I say this here? Like, in the good time. Every time it's a good time, you bring up something they didn't do right the last time.
Yeah, not
I'm just
everything.
playing.
Yeah, no,
I'm just
yeah. But actually leveraging that time, right, to say, hey, can we, sectioning off some time and saying, you know what, let's do an inventory. Let's just talk about how we're doing, how we feel. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And it's a safe, and you can say that this in here is a confines of a safe space, right? So I can share it no matter how uncomfortable it is. But we agree that the boundary of this is not to walk away thinking anger, but it's to walk away trying to get an understanding of why. And if we focus on the why that individual feels that way, or why that individual said that, then we can start picking apart, well, what's the origin of this? And that's when you start coming together more, because now you're learning, you're discovering, you're understanding what that really means. But both people have to be there, right? It can't be one person that's trying to push that and the other person isn't there.
Yeah.
That's tough.
And I love how you said get. I mean that should be the takeaway for everybody. Get to the origin of it. Find out the whys, and because once you get there, it opens up. You understand a whole lot more. You understand a whole lot more. And for those of you who are in open relationships, but your partner don't know you're in an open relationship, you can use Casal's answer. He gave y'all a scapegoat tonight. They asked you to use your phone and say, I work in cybersecurity.
No, my goodness, no.
I work in cybersecurity and I can't give out my email. Casal, that is like the perfect cheat line. That is
Oh
like
my
the
goodness.
perfect cheater line. I work in cybersecurity and
Oh
I
my
can't
goodness.
give out my password because
I do not stand by that message.
like, cause I'm telling you, Casal, that's like the perfect. Hold on, Steven said something real quick. Hold on, Steven. And Casal, you got to read. I don't have my glasses on, so you'll read that.
Yeah, I like that. I think people are quick to say something is done wrong, but slow to give affirmations and praise when something is done well. Absolutely. Absolutely. The affirmations, people underestimate how affirmations really impact a man. Anyone, really, but impact a man. If you affirm a man that, hey, thank you for sharing, thank you for feeling safe enough to share that with me. That's kind of like, oh shoot, okay, maybe I can share a little more. There, it was received. But the affirmations go a long way with creating safe spaces.
I love that. That's another thing, ladies. So Casal just gave y'all insecure ladies an idea
John, you killing me.
to get your man to talk more. He'll be no start spilling his beans out. Just say, hey, I like when you did that. I thank you for trusting me with that. And thank you for trusting me. And you know you already you burning up on the inside. Yeah, I'm gonna catch him. I'm gonna catch him. Gasol, we you give like cheaters and
Oh my
sociopaths
goodness.
a lot of ideas to get their way. Thank you, Gasol.
John, if it wasn't you, brother, if it wasn't you.
So y'all remember that those of you that are in an open relationship but your partner don't know, just say you work in cybersecurity. And ladies, those of you that want your man to start just talking to you more, so you know you can find out the dirt. Just say, hey, thank you for trusting me with that. I
Where's
appreciate
that?
that.
Where's that sign that says I do not endorse this message?
But guys, so
Oh
we
man.
have reached the hour. Casal, this has been amazing. So guys, listen up. You need to go out. Casal has like his whole season. What you have like 5, 6 episodes, Casal?
6, yeah, about to publish 7, 8, 7 and 8.
And y'all like they are like amazing from the beginning to the end. They are amazing. You can find them on his YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Space Network. It's a logo. He's actually wearing it
Yeah,
on his
right
shirt.
here. Yeah.
So you'll see that in the search engine. Just search in Safe Space Network, and go subscribe to Casal because all of these episodes, well, all his episodes, trust me, they're well produced. They're amazing episodes. But this season, I am so proud of him for
I
stepping out
appreciate it.
and doing his thing in a different way. You were always doing your thing, but yeah, he's given some great. He has some great episodes, and he's not giving tips to cheat and be a sociopath in those. But tonight he did on my podcast. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. So yeah, I appreciate you. So yeah, go out, look at Casal's subscribe to his channel. And then also, guys, so everybody know, and this we didn't have a podcast on last week, and I definitely want to thank everyone for the birthday wishes on last week, and the text messages and the Facebook, social media posting, and so forth. Thank you so much. It meant a whole lot for me to receive those things from you all. So thank you for that. But we didn't have a podcast last week. So because we didn't have a podcast, I'm not going to ask a question about last week's the podcast when Steven was on, because that was 2 weeks ago. I know y'all probably don't remember that. But next week is the final, where we have 2 more episodes, but next week is the only week that I'm the final week of me giving out. And the pot is like $200 now. So like study this podcast tonight. And if you get the answer right, you'll get $200 next week. Like that night in your Cash App or Zelle or whatever. So look at tonight's podcast. Make sure you know it, because this has been filled with like so many nuggets other than the cheating and the sociopath. This has been filled with so many nuggets, some wonderful nuggets on tonight. And Casal, thank you so much for coming on here, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Always a pleasure. Love it.
Yeah, this was awesome, dude. This was awesome. So if you enjoy tonight, please share this podcast with others, and we will see you guys next Monday. Well, let me see. Pat says something here. So you got to read that. I don't have my glasses.
Peace. This was saying that it was a great episode. Yes.
Thank you, thank you, Pat, for that. And guys, we will see y'all next Monday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And yeah, $200 is the pot. So make sure you look at this podcast tonight, because this will be one of the questions for next week. Maybe I ask, what was Casal tip to the cheaters?
Oh my God, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Nah, that ain't going to be the question. Y'all already know that. But see you guys next Monday. Peace.
All right, take care.